Success in the industry is never achieved alone. While talent will open the door, true success is achieved through teamwork. As the old saying says, you're only as good as your team. This is Who's on Your Team?
Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Who's on Your Team radio panel hosted by Urban One, and we are grateful for this opportunity. I am your host of this conversation, Sam Selolwane, aka Sam the Hype Beast, aka Baby Sam, aka I got my start in the business at Urban One, which was Radio One on 100 St. Paul Street, for those who understand the classic radio where Miss Hughes used to be in Baltimore, Maryland, 92Q, the People Station. I am your host for this afternoon, and we have an esteemed panelist of some great industry folk who I am going to ask them to first introduce themselves, where they are, where they work, and just give a little brief history on their coming up in the business. And I really want to kind of delve into a couple of things, obviously with what has been happening throughout the last couple of years, and then most recently, just throughout the past year within the pandemic, how each one of these respective esteemed executives have all kind of transitioned into the pandemic world, but still operating at a high velocity. So I do want to, Azim, I'm sorry, you're going to have to be the last one because we're going to start with ladies first. But Ashaunna, I would like for you to kick it off, introduce yourself, and give us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the game.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashaunna Ayars. I am from Queens, New York. I got my start in the music business by way of an internship. While I was in high school, I entered into a program called Co-op, and it required me to do an internship in order to gain credits in order to graduate high school. And so I happened to have a friend who was at that time signed to Bad Boy Entertainment. And if you know Bad Boy Entertainment in the 90s, you know it was the only label you wanted to work or intern at. And so when I needed to do my internship, I requested that it be at a label. I couldn't get into Bad Boy. They had too many interns, but my first internship was at Atlantic Records. From there, I continued to intern through my senior year in high school and got my first paying job in my second year of college working for Wu-Tang Clan. Worked for them for about 5 years and then began working for Swiss Beats and his joint venture with J Records until landing at Def Jam, where I spent most of my career. And then from there, I kind of ran the marketing departments at a few different major labels, Def Jam, Warner Brothers, and Atlantic, before starting my own firm, which covers marketing and management.
All right, Dora, I'm going to swing it to you.
Hi, Dora Whittley, originally from Cameroon, West Africa. I grew up in Paris, so French is my first language. I've been in the US now since '93. My background was math and science, coming from very traditional African parents, and I got into entertainment working through business banking with Kenny Rogers. So country music was really my onset, and Kenny drove me to, I was curious. I wanted to know more, beyond just, doing his business banking and business loans, across the world in Philippines and so forth. I wanted to learn more, and I poured and asked questions, and that kind of piqued my curiosity. I got my start sitting on the board for a film festival called Peachtree Village International Film Festival here in Atlanta, Georgia. And while working there, I became acquainted with an actor named Carl Payne, who became the first client. And Carl is a seasoned actor here in the US. And that was really, I guess, my jump start into the world of entertainment. It was fast, right? Because it was a very fast life. And it kind of evolved from there into working not just on the acting side and the music side, but into sports, working with Lawrence Taylor of the New York Giants, and then into modeling with Tyra's, America's Next Top Model with Dominique Reichert, and traveling the world there. And that was really the onset and the birth of what was formerly known as Schwader Great Management and Media, which is today known as the Whittley Agency. We do business, brand management, and consulting, as well as talent management, headquartered here in Atlanta. And we're a subsidiary of Liquid Soul Media, which is owned by my brother-in-law, Terrell Whittley, which is the marketing arm. for our company. And so we operate here, headquartered in Atlanta. I have offices in Dallas, DC, France, and Africa. So this is Whittley Agency and Dora Whittley. A pleasure to speak with you all today.
Well, thank you for joining, Miss International. And Keita, I'm gonna swing it over to you.
I love that, Miss International. Well, I am definitely Keita Pub Diva. And I use the word diva in a more lovingly way. That's how I refer to all my queens in front and behind the camera as divas, because I do believe we are dynamic individuals, virtuously anointed. But in that space, I actually started out in the career of journalism. I got my degree in journalism. I got my MBA as well, but I started out as a TV reporter for ABC. Upon graduating college, my goal at the time was to work in this space because I was told that talking could make me millions. And I didn't believe that until I went off to college and realized that there was more to the career spectrum beside becoming a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, all those components that, you're familiar with. Once I got into college, I loved the fact that I could create a story around just a small piece of something. Upon that graduation, I too got a chance to get indoctrinated by having an internship after becoming a TV reporter. So I actually did it with the reverse way. I decided upon graduating and working as a TV reporter that it wasn't making enough money for me. I really wanted to be the Black Katie Couric at the time. And because I was only making $24,000 working hard, I assumed that there was more to come. So I actually packed my bags up while being an on-air TV reporter. I saved $5,287.64. I decided in the year 2000, because it's all about goals, right? I decided in the year 2000 that if the world does not end, I don't know those of you who remember that, if the world does not end, she will be moving to California. And in that space, I made a vow to myself that I would move to California. So literally, I restarted my career with an internship. And that is one of the things I really wanted to emphasize. It's never too late to start over. I got my internship at Entertainment Tonight after being a college graduate. And from there is where my alliance came. And I fell in love with one of the jobs I knew nothing about because my parents didn't go to college. I knew nothing about this world called PR. And so I became very fascinated really quickly, worked my way up, became an entertainment publicist, and worked for one of the top PR firms at the time, was called Rogers & Cowan PR. I was the only brown-skinned girl at the time working at Rogers & Cowan PR. My mentor was Maureen O'Connor, and that's where I got a chance to form alliances with a lot of my label reps because I was able to take care of them with credentials and tickets. So I got scooped up by Kevin Lyles at Def Jam, and they created a position in the West Coast office, and I became director of PR for the West Coast in the year 2001. And worked with everyone from Leah Cohen to Julie Greenwald. Jenna Fleischman, who is now at Rock Nation, was also my boss. And I got a chance to work with some of the greats from Jay-Z, DMX, shout out to DMX, may he rest in peace. All the greats, the LL Cool J's as well. And I got indoctrinated so quickly that I then got a chance to learn, as I call Def Jam University. That's where I am now. I have a PR company called GEMA, called Greyheart Entertainment and Media, and we do all things that encompass branding, PR, marketing, events, and development.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yeah, and it's good to know the history, especially for people that I don't know you personally, but we are like adjacent from various people that we know. So I feel like I know you. 6 degrees of separation.
It is 6 degrees of separation. And I'm also on Black Love this season. So catch me out because I'm sharing my love story. That you can be a boss, you can be a wife, and you can be a power player in all those worlds. So I am on this season of Black Love, and you'll learn a lot about me.
Congratulations to that. Speaking of Black Love, Azim has his own version of Black Love.
Yes.
Azim, I would like for you to just round off this conversation before we jump in. Give us a little bit about your history and take it away.
Well, thanks, Sam, and good afternoon, ladies. You all have amazing stories. And Ashaunna, as you know, you're one of my favorite people on the planet, as well as you, Sam. And great to meet you, Dora and Keita. I feel like I know you guys virtually and mentally now, especially because of your introductions. But I am what you would call an industry baby. I started out very young, 17 years old. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, but I moved to Dallas, Texas when I was 15 with my parents. I decided that the South has something to say, and it did. It really gave me an opportunity. So I started out as a DJ in high school and a promoter. So entrepreneurship actually runs in my DNA. As I started when I got out of high school, got to go to college, went to University of North Texas, which is a PWI about 40 miles northwest of Dallas, and it's a music school. And I thought I was going to, actually be a doctor, believe it or not. But my freshman year in college, I was part of a rap group called Nemesis, and we put out the first rap record in Dallas, Texas. And I was doing everything. I was behind the scenes, kind of making it happen, putting all the plays together, as well as being the lead vocalist, as well as the group spokesperson. And while I was doing that, when we weren't on the road, we weren't in the studio, I was working at Hastings, which was a retail store, kind of like what would be Barnes and Nobles now, music, books, and movies. I was the urban music specialist for the Southwest Division, which taught me the retail game. During that time, I would meet all the record reps, and I ran into my other mentor, a lifelong mentor named Mike Kelly. He was working for Motown. And how Mike and I really got cool was Queen Latifah had just signed to Motown, and she had the record UNITY. And if you go back to the mid to late 90s, it was, more music, less rap, not on the radio. And so Mike gave me a challenge to help him get this record on the radio, and I did. And Helen taught me about programming. Like, listen, you can figure out where this record should fit on the radio, then, we may have a shot. And I accomplished that goal. Mike and I forged a fast friendship, and he said, listen, I think you'd be good in records. And he offered me an internship to go work at Motown, and my heart was really in radio. But my boss at the time didn't want me to do both. I was, thought I could be ambidextrous and do both things at the same time. He said, you got to pick a side. So you know what? Motown, Berry Gordy, who wasn't there at the time, obviously he was chairman emeritus. It was Gerald Busby, God bless the dead, who was there at the time. But so you know what? Let me go be a Motown man. And from there, my career took off. I got into the branch. I was a paid assistant. I started doing street team and lifestyle for Mercury Records. We had Black Sheep at the time. I was working with Perspective, who, Jan and Lewis had their label there, but I was just running through that building like my hair was on fire. And I was about to graduate in a year. And upon my graduation, they offered me a lifestyle marketing gig to be the Southwest regional for the mix show department, working for Mercury Records. And I did that for about 3 months. And then Mike Kelly decided to go to New York and work for Sylvia Rhone at Elektra. And I was the youngest rep in Motown Records at the time. From there, it kind of just took off. Did Motown for a couple of years. I moved to New York City right when Uptown was being dissolved. And Mary was going over to MCA Records full time, part of the Share My World project. And I did that for about 10 years in MCA. From MCA, I went to Atlantic Records, where we started a division called Special Ops, Def Jam U Part 2, based on the founders. And that really changed my life because I got to learn how to start an organization from ground up. I was the first person hired. I literally hired my staff while I was on tour with one of Puff's acts called B5. And we were on our way from New York to Miami for the Urban One Conference. It used to be the Spring Fest in Miami. And literally for about a week and a half, 2 weeks on the road, I was on the phone, I was meeting people, I was hiring staff, and I was doing everything. And that really changed my career. Did that for about 10 years. Got into distribution for a very brief time at Warner at ADA. Left there, went to Capitol, did my graduate studies, as I say, on the West Coast for about 4 years at Capitol Records. Right as they were signing QC and getting, the Migos and Coach K and those guys over there. And then I got a hankering to come back to New York. And a good friend of mine and one of my mentors as well, Benny Pugh, got the presidency at Rock Nation. And this is the first time they'd actually had brought in from the outside full service music people. So we had promotion, marketing, sales, like they staffed it up for the first time in their 10-year history. And we had a brief but effective run over there. They blew the whole thing up in 2019, and I've been at Sony ever since.
I will say each person's very small bio or short bio is definitely not indicative of the long work that everybody has had and the long career that everybody is continuing to have. The one thread that I feel like everyone has mentioned has almost been like this reinvention of the career choices throughout your path. And I do want to kind of start off and kind of kick it to Ashaunna as well as Keita. And, Azim and Dora, please chime in. But, Ashaunna, you starting off from a label into being a manager, into owning your own agency. Keita, similar to you, from PR to journalism to making all of these changes. There's been an underlying theme just of the reinvention of yourselves. And you guys are all pointing to the fact that, it wasn't really a straight road. Can you guys speak a little bit on just what it took, or at what point were you guys at to make those kinds of career changes? And was there any kind of hesitation in making those changes, and what kind of challenges you guys had and continue to have?
So my style of marketing was always a 360 approach. I didn't just deal with an artist when they had an album coming, or just the marketing aspect of a project. I was in the A&R conversations. I was in video conversations. I was in touring, merch, endorsements. I was a part of every conversation because I wanted my full vision to be encompassed in every area of that artist's career, project, plan. And so after a few years of developing artists and really seeing, an artist walk in your office unknown and walk out of your office as a superstar, I started to understand and recognize that my value was much more than maybe what I was seeing in my paycheck and in the opportunities that I was getting. And so that's where management, or the idea of management, kind of came. And it was really the artists that I was working with wanting to have that, have me involved in every aspect of their career. I won't sit here and act like I had it all mapped out and I was going to leave on this day and I had this plan. I didn't. I think God was showing me my value in many different ways, and the value that I was bringing to these artists, and wanting me to see how much more I could be doing and how much more I could be gaining, and how much better I could be with doing it on my own.
Well, thank you for that. That's very insightful. And we are going to come back to something that you just mentioned a little bit. But Keita, I do want to kind of get your insight on that as well.
Okay. I had it all figured out. I'm joking. She said she didn't have a roadmap. I did. No.
But God always has a figure. Okay.
Yes.
Amen.
No, I actually will definitely be in agreement. A lot of time in the industry, you can actually have a blueprint. No pun intended on Jay-Z's, but working on the blueprint, I remember specifically, one of the things is you may not have it all mapped out. I think it's important to have intentionality in the way you move. And she actually was intentional as well as I was. I think most of us too, with, listening to ourselves at times when we're not really listening to ourselves. Either, things will happen and the pieces will move a certain way. So I'll say, for me, in so many areas of my life, I've been blessed to have a village. I think it's most important, first and foremost, no matter what direction you're taking, is to really have a village, and always have people in your village who are doing more and know more than you do. Because that allows you to elevate yourself and to absorb knowledge and to absorb experiences that may not be your own. So I'm very cognizant of that. And even now, I make sure I have people in my space that I can still grow and learn from.
My question to you is, was there always this passion for music? Was this always, I'm going to get into business, but this is going to be my entry point? And then also, as you grew, how did you kind of nurture and develop that part of it?
Good question. So music, I think, is the foundation and the languages across the world. I came to this country literally saying, hello, my name is Dora Whitfield, my maiden name. I didn't speak English. So learning even English language, the Black culture, which I now know very well. Obviously, for me, I learned it through television. I learned it solidly through music. And the funny story is a lot of the artists that I grew up, when I came into the US, listening to and utilizing their music to learn the language. I ended up working in some shape or form, from Arrested Development to 112, and the list goes on. I worked with all of them, right? And so I think that for me became full circle. you know, how you can come from another footprint, another continent, immerse yourself in a whole new environment that's foreign to you, and figure out how to navigate yourself, you know. And I go back to the foundation of math and science, which is all my parents. You know, you're either going to be a doctor or a mathematician, but you had no other choice. And so for the longest, I was that student at Carolina when I took my MCATs that I went to study at night, you know, but I would go to the club afterwards. So I knew I would end up in entertainment or business in some form. It just could not be full out, you know, music. I had to frame it for my parents to understand, hey, business can lead to this, and I can connect my country this way. And, you know, it was a process in itself. I got into an ecosystem of very strong, powerful people here in Atlanta. And my mentor till this day, and she's my big sister, her name is Aisha Obafemi. She's, you know, over with DT. Yeah. And so Aisha really grew me, taught me. I don't even know that there's a value to what I can put to that, to what she's taught me even through today.
Well, I'm glad that you kind of brought up something that I think is key, that everyone has kind of touched upon throughout the conversation, but I will start it off with Azim. I'd like for you to highlight maybe one key mentor in your life, but then also just really speak about mentorship for anybody. And we also know that mentorship is not just for somebody who's in high school going into college. We all know mentorship does not discriminate towards age. So, you know, I would like for you guys to speak on it, but Azim, I'd like for you to kick it off.
Well, one, I think you framed it perfectly. Mentorship is something that's key for everyone. Mm-hmm. I think you should have them, you should seek them out, but it's a complicated relationship. I mean, for me, outside of my family, like a strong Black male influence, and until I went to college, Dr. Greg Sawyer, who was at that time was the dean of students. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have graduated from college. He said, listen, you know, you've had this entertainment career. You say you want to get into the business. Well, now you're on campus, and this ecosystem, this small universe of the campus is, you know, a microcosm of the rest of the world. And going to a PWI, what I often tell people that I speak to when I do these panels, like, listen, I learned how to deal with all kinds of people. So growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, I was basically going to all Black school, went to all Black private school, then went to all Black public school. And when I moved to Dallas, it was a culture shock. And, you know, not to be funny, Dora, but like moving from Cleveland, Ohio to Richardson, Texas was literally like moving to a foreign country for me, because it was like, you know, I looked funny, I talked funny, I dressed different. It was crazy, right? So I had to really adapt. And then especially going from dealing with nothing but people of color on a day-to-day basis to dealing with 99% people who didn't look like me. So through high school and college, I learned that. And there was a woman in high school. I just visited her this week. Her name was Wanda Lewis. She was the counselor, Black counselor. She wasn't even the counselor. She was actually the receptionist for the counselors. And she was from California. And she said, you know, come here, little boy, let me talk to you. And to this day, she's been a mentor of mine. But going into college, then it was Dr. Sawyer who helped me get through college. And then I met Helen, and then I met Mike Kelly. And even, you know, going into the business, you know, Benny, who hired me first, he taught me things, who now he became a mentor because he's good in business outside of the music. And then probably Kevin Lyles, you know, was the guy that I say changed my life, because when we met on just a random friendship type situation. But over the time that we got to know each other over a few years, we didn't work together immediately. It took about 4 or 5 years for us to actually connect on a work level. They saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself, that I could be great, that I could go further than I thought, that I could achieve these dreams and these goals, because what they saw in me was a hustler. Like Kelly tells me all the time, he says, Zane, you've been multitasking since the day I met you. When I go back and look at it, you know, on campus, I was homecoming king. I was president of my fraternity. Shout out to Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, the oldest and the coldest. I was on the President's Council. I was on the UPC, where we bring the artists to the campus. Then I was working part-time. Then I was interning. So I was always doing all these things. So I don't really know anything else about how to stay busy. Mm-hmm. So now you fast forward a 25-year executive career, and to your point, Sam, going back and trying to give that information to other people, I just try to show them an example of what you can do through hard work. I often say, and I literally just said this to a group of young people on Monday, that I don't think I have any particular skill set that makes me special. You know, I'm an average sports guy. I'm not educated. I don't know if I'm super smart, but the one thing that I have that I don't see that challenges anybody else is my work ethic. And I got that from my parents. You know, they taught me, listen, an honest day's work for honest day's pay. Mm-hmm. And what they say, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work. That has been the story of my life. So, you know, I may not be the biggest, smartest, fastest, had the most money, look the best, but I guarantee you, you give me and you the same opportunity and I'm going to outwork you every day of the week. And that's my message to anybody that I deal with.
Well, thank you for that. Anyone else on mentorship?
I'll speak to the idea of working hard and how that relates to my mentor-mentee journey. When I started at Def Jam University, I was leaving Swiss. I had gotten an opportunity from Kevin Lyles to work at Def Jam in the marketing department. But my previous job was running Swiss Beats' record company. And we had become family. I loved him to death. And so it was hard leaving him. And so I had offered him 30 days notice before leaving to go take this new job at Def Jam, because as much as I love Swiss, you know, Def Jam was the creme de la creme of record labels. And having a job at Def Jam, especially in the marketing department, was the end all be all. And so I was taking that job. Gave Swiss 30 days, told Kevin I could start in 30 days. And so by the time I started, Kevin and Leora and Julie were gone. And L.A. Reid was the new chairman and Jay-Z was coming on as the new president. So they had not hired me. My contract wasn't done because this was Kevin. It was going to be fine. So by the time my first day came, Kevin, Leora, Julie were gone, a whole new regime in the building. So on my first day, LA comes in to meet me and he's like, well, who are you and who hired you? Well, if you're good, why didn't they take you with them? Like, that was our conversation on day one, which was this, and this is a fact, which was extremely scary because LA had come in with his whole Arista team and Jay was coming with his Rockefeller team and I was nobody's team. So all I had was me and the artists they were assigning to me. And that was, you know, Jeezy, who was signed before they got there. That was Neo, who was signed before they got there. That was, you know, a bunch of new artists. And so I only had myself and the work that I was going to do to deliver to show them that I was worth keeping, and the artists who was also left alone by the people who signed them. Even if you're not specifically or intentionally being a mentor, just know that there are people watching you, and that is gonna that will follow you throughout your career.
And Ashaunna, you know what's funny about that? One, I never heard that story, so that's amazing.
That's a true story.
but to the fact,
you know, you left me there. Like, you know, you left. That could have went many different ways, but you left me there.
But and it speaks to who you are. So now it's all coming together, right? But about being a mentor, like, it's something that I don't necessarily know that I aspire to do, but as I've gone on my journey, and to your point, it just kept coming up. Well, how did you get this? Or how did you get that? Or to your point, I remember this and I remember that. And even now, like, there's cats that walk up to me, yo, when you was at Atlantic, I remember this. I'm gonna do it. I have no idea who you are.
Yep.
Yeah.
I take it, yeah. But I do say this. I think it's incumbent upon all of us, and I know we all do it, but I think it's something that we push out to the universe as well, that we actively do it. And it doesn't have to be, you know, I think we all are privileged and have real mentor relationships where they help us in our lives as well as our career lives. But just being an advocate, being a voice.
You know, where I wasn't as intentional, you know, during my Def Jam University days, and maybe even some of my time at Atlantic or Warner, now I am being more intentional about sharing my journey, because what I find is that then there wasn't Instagram and there wasn't all this social media. And I think what young entrepreneurs are seeing now is everybody's highlight reel. They're seeing everybody's success story. And so now my intention is to share, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly about the journey, because I don't want a young girl who looks like me to be discouraged because they're seeing young women who look like them on Instagram just showing their highlight reel. I want you to know that I didn't have a plan for starting my business, that I had a tax issue that I had to figure out because I wasn't aware, that, you know, I was forced into this entrepreneur world, because I don't want you to be discouraged when you get into a rut and don't know how to figure it out because you think it's just supposed to be what you see on Instagram.
Well, Ashaunna, I think that is that's a great way to segue into the closing portion of this, because as we're wrapping, I think this conversation has just been, insightful as well as eye-opening, and I'm hoping that everyone who is watching is seeing the different stories, but to see almost like this through line of just the consistency of following through with your dream and your passion. But I would like for you guys to at least just give some parting words of wisdom to anyone who's watching, something that you would want anybody to know about just being in the business and also just continuing to forge their careers and stay on the course.
The purpose of all that we do is really about pouring into someone else's stratosphere. And I think it's really important, first and foremost, because this is about starting the journey, is to pour into yourself. Azim and Ashaunna did a great job of explaining it, because I know sometimes when you start out, you don't always have a place to plug into. Right now, we're all plugs. We are the plug. I know if people call me today for anything, I'm able to plug them in. If I don't have the answer or the resource at hand, I'm able to get to that. But I think the number one part of it is learning how to navigate those waters on your own. And sometimes you don't necessarily have a Kevin Lyles, or you don't always have, those people in your space that, as they mentioned, are going to pay attention. So my advice is that it's okay to have a mentor that does not know they're your mentor, because I think the pressure that comes in the space of learning and growing and evolving is that you need to make sure that you're paying attention to those people who are making the same moves that you want to make. What does that look like?
And Dora, we're going to end off with you, and then we'll wrap up.
I'll be swift with it. I think that my closing words are: become an expert at what you do. Be kind to those who you come in contact with, because tomorrow these will be the very same people that refer business to you as an entrepreneur. I would say be authentic and start with the end in mind. Assess your performance, assess your growth, personal and professionally. Look for areas where you can improve. Find that mentor. And I think it's important to understand that through this whole career, business, brand development journey, that you just keep a teachable mindset, and it's okay not to know everything.
Thank you, this esteemed panel. So thank you, everybody, for joining us.